We hear it all the time, don't we? Everyone wants to make a difference. Everyone wants change, right? A book, a message, an antidote, a solution. Everyone has an idea on how they can make the world better. Correct? But how many know that when it comes to social, systemic, and spiritual issues, that it's just really not that easy, is it? How many times have you had a spiritual problem, or you've had a social problem, or some type of problem that you've tried to discuss with people and you tried to share it with them, all to come back disappointed, all to know that they just don't have the answer? As a matter of fact, they give you the same cookie cutter story or the same cookie cutter ideas that everyone else gives you. And you know that that just doesn't work for the situations that you are dealing with. Now, imagine that problem magnified across 50 states, across America, across this nation. Everyone dealing with that problem that you're dealing with, that people seem to not have the solution to. From the inner cities to the ghettos to the suburbs, people are seething, they're oozing with things that they are dealing with that sometimes people just don't seem to have the answers to. But you, my friend, say, I do. I have the answers. Well, okay, good. Because it is people like you that I would like to talk to. It is people like you who think differently, who don't go with the status quo, who challenge the status quo, and who know that in order for us to have a better future as individuals, as businesses, as leaders and entrepreneurs, you know you have to think different, right? You know you can't come with the same stories, right? You know you can't come with the same ideas that seem to work for yesterday, but everybody seems to be in a rut that will not work for today. So I want to join you in for the first episode of this new year, which is 2025. And I'm going to talk about Chicago. Yes, Chicago. I think Chicago is a perfect example of a people who stood up and said, enough is enough. Not only did they challenge their mayor, they also challenged the political arena. So let's take a look at Chicago. I am going to give you a few clips to listen to. When you listen to this clip, hear the passion, hear what the people are saying, because that's what's called in demand leadership. Again, this is what this show is about. It is about in demand leadership and entrepreneurship. See, there's this concept that they have in entrepreneurship that when you sell a product or a service, it needs to be what? In demand, supply and demand. If people are not really needing that or wanting that, they're not going to do what? They're not going to buy it, right? And it's the same way in leadership. If people are not getting their problems solved, then they're not trying to hear it. And depending on who they are and how forceful and how forthright they are, they will stand up and guess what? They will say enough is enough. Stay tuned and I'll be right back.
Johnson, first of all, I hate to break your heart. I didn't vote for you. I'm a lifelong conservative. Nevertheless, your job is to represent all of the people of Chicago and not your own personal interests. On May 15, 2020, you took your oath of office and solemnly swore to support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Illinois, and that you would faithfully discharge the duties of the office of mayor to the best of your ability. The U.S. Constitution, Article 4, Section 4, states that the United States shall guarantee to every state in the Union a Republican form of government and shall protect each of these against invasion. The preamble of the U.S. Constitution states that we, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, and provide for the common defense. Likewise, the Illinois Constitution reiterates that the people formed our government with its primary role being to ensure domestic tranquility and provide for the common defense. Brandon Johnson, you violated your oath of office. You have not supported the U.S. Constitution nor the Illinois Constitution. You have not protected the people of Chicago from invasion nor ensured domestic tranquility. You have also ignored the Declaration of Independence, which declares that governments derive their just powers from the consent of the governed. No one appointed a monarch to rule over the people of Chicago. Rather, as mayor, your duty is to serve the public, and you are bound by the parameters of the Constitution only to act
pay
by the
attention very
consent of
closely,
the.
and this is going to give you some insight into what in-demand leadership is really all about and entrepreneurship. Listen to this person very closely, how they break down the details, and here we go.
So it has already been determined that you don't follow the United States Constitution. And maybe that's perhaps because you're not a founding father and your name is not on the document. So perhaps if we show you something that your name is on, maybe you'll follow those rules. Rules of order and procedure. City Council, City of Chicago, for 2023 to 2027, with your name on it. However, we sit in here all the time and watch you violate our rights. We sit in here all the time and watch you allow City Council to violate our rights. Now, we're going to talk about this budget, about the strange things that's happening. Because, again, your name was on this executive order of May 2023. This executive order for immigration, migrants, and refugee rights. You caused all this money to go to illegal immigrants, not Harold Washington. You're going to be held accountable for it. And we want a forensic audit of the money that was spent on illegal immigration. You all are trying to do everything but that, when in fact, that's where all the money.
Welcome back to the Critical Line Network, where insight meets analysis and conversation spark transformation. Now, when you heard the passion and you heard what people were really saying, how did you feel? How did you feel as aspiring leaders and entrepreneurs and those that are on the rise? How did that speak to you? What does that mean to you? Put it down below in the comments. Again, this is very, very important because we are entering into an era where people are pretty much fending for themselves today. So if you are aspiring to be an entrepreneur or you're aspiring to be a leader, you need to think in demand. So as you know, some of the systemic and social issues that have been carrying on in Chicago has been crime and gang violence, leadership and policy initiatives, economic inequality in housing, education, and youth welfare. So those are some of the few, right? But today, what I want to talk about is the crime and the continual growing violence. I also want to hit on the critical issues that cause Black Chicagoans to go from blue to red in this election. And then I want to talk about leadership and government policy. Why is this important? Because as an aspiring leaders and entrepreneurs, number one, I stress it all the time, you need to understand your government, how it operates, and you need to understand policy. Because not only does it affect your business, it affects your leadership and it affects how you're going to gear things for the future for the people that you are leading or that you are running a company for. So those are the three things that I want to touch on today. Since you are here already watching, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and the notification button for weekly episodes that educate, elevate, and empower on the rise aspiring leaders and entrepreneurs such as yourself. So the game plan is to get you prepared and equipped so that you will be empowered to be an in-demand leader and an in-demand entrepreneur. Let's talk about these issues, right? So for a very, very long time, Chicago has been dealing with a lot of crime. I stayed there for a year and I stayed in what was called Hyde Park. And as a matter of fact, that's an area where Obama used to work at and do his grassroots in. And firsthand, I personally, when I stayed there, I didn't experience those things. I'm a house body, so I didn't go a lot of places and I don't party. So I personally didn't experience that. But what I did experience was the spiritual aspect. So bear with me. If you've ever been to one neighborhood from another, you can pick up on what's called spiritual energy. So if you've ever been in one neighborhood, it feels kind of creepy, right? And then if you go into another neighborhood, it feels heavy and depressed and impoverished, right? And then when you go to another neighborhood, no matter how it look, you can feel negative or some type of jealous energy, right? Well, everybody says this about Chicago, and it really is true. Chicago has a type of vibe, depending on where you at, that is very, very dark and very heavy. So that alone lets you know that something is kind of going on in the city on a spiritual level that you may not be participating in, but you can sure feel it. throughout your body and sometimes your physical and spiritual realm. So, but just to put that aside, again, Chicago has been dealing with bloodbaths for a very, very long time. As a matter of fact, it is such a city that is so spoken about that I remember that people used to say, oh, you don't ever want to go to Chicago. It's known as the Windy City, you know. And so in my mind, I always thought that Windy City meant it was very cold because, of course, people tell you that Chicago is cold. So I'm thinking like a lot of wind, right? But come to find out, when I did move there, one, I enjoyed the snow and I did enjoy, I moved there during the vortex. So if you know what the vortex is, it's the double digit below. So it's the freezing. And I actually didn't feel it like everybody else felt it. I don't know why, but I didn't. It was okay to me. Like it really was. As a matter of fact, I think Northern Virginia gets way colder than Chicago. So, and I mean cold, which is up there where Google is at. So Chicago is known again as the Windy City. Now, when I got there, I realized that it didn't mean wind. It's known as the Windy City because of corrupt politicians. So when I learned about that, I was like, oh, okay. I'm thinking they're talking about like real cold wind, real windy, but that's not what they were saying at all. What it's actually known for is it used to be the gang era of course, you know about the Italian gangs and mobs, and also was known for corrupt politicians. Now we're going to talk about Mayor Brandon Johnson a little bit later and Black Chicagoans. So we're going to get into that. So if you are a Chicagoan, I would like for you to put in the comments below, what are your experiences living in Chicago? Do you deal with gangs? Do you deal with systemic issues as far as employment? What is your neighborhood like? You know, is it a neighborhood where it's supportive when it comes to Blacks? Or maybe, you know, you have to go get support outside of your neighborhoods. But I would like for you to leave your comments below and share, you know, with everyone else about your experiences as a Chicagoan, and like what are some of the political things that made you change from blue to red, if you change, and if you didn't change, why you didn't change. Why did you think to stay the same when there were a lot of people voicing that they wanted to change their political views to red because of some of the issues that was going on in Chicago with the mayors and some of the political people that they have in office. So again, leave your comments below, interactive, and I do appreciate that. And
We're
the
here to
area
talk
I
about
lived in
history repeating itself. Let's talk about taxation. Chicago has a tax for everything. Water tax, grocery tax, tourist tax, hotel tax, bag tax, liquor tax, cigarette tax, the highest sales tax in the country by far, parking tax, surcharge of downtown parking, property lease tax, and streamer tax. The only thing that you all don't have a tax for yet is oxygen tax.
Now, leaders and entrepreneurs, one thing I want you to understand is this. People will vote you in, but also if they don't feel that you're leading correctly or that things didn't go as planned, they will have a tendency to want to vote you out. So this is mainly for leaders who are going to be into politics. You're going to be into certain boardrooms as business people and all this kind of stuff. You must understand that leadership and character goes hand in hand. I remember years ago, I was at a particular service at church, and I never forget, this woman told me one time, she said, your talent, your gift will take you before great men. It'll be your character that keeps you there. So as we take notes and listen to this next clip, I want you to pay attention to how people get angry, how people will start cursing. And basically the same people that bless you when they bring you in, if you don't have character or things don't go right, they will curse you to get you out. Okay? So stay tuned.
You all sit up there and said you will not allow Trump to come in here and get these illegals. Yeah, you can smile. We're in $1 billion deficit. And you spent half of our money, half of that, on illegals. You campaign and double down that you will not raise property taxes.
I won't raise your property taxes.
You wanted to raise our taxes $300 million. They shut it down. Now we back here for $150 million. Okay. See, this is what we asking now. Since you want to crash out, some of y'all say y'all willing to go to jail for it. I'm homie. Take an example at this Negro right here first. Please come here first, because you know what's going to help you. We want to for real.
Ma'am, I would ask that you.
We want to for real.
Hold on a second. Stop her time.
Stop her time. Just a second. Just a second. Stop her time. Ma'am, I want to ask that if you want to continue speaking, you have to make sure that your language is appropriate. Okay? All right. You can begin her time again.
You're gonna spend our tax dollars to go, Michael Rodriguez, you said to take Trump to court to protect these illegals. That's cool because we about to make all of y'all all in this face. Y'all think this ass gonna rap? I think not.
And I
Tell
do appreciate
Chicago
that.
we.
And the area I lived in Hyde Park, was basically in the Versailles area. So it was right there by the Target and the Trader Joe's and all of that. I did see a lot of homelessness, a lot of people sleeping outside, even during the snow. Now, one thing I did experience is that I was doing a little bit of YouTube at that time. So I would experience certain young people that when the gangs would be into it, they would literally get up there and make the most vulgar comments. Like they had nothing to do with it, but they would make the most vulgar comments. So that means that these gangs were so deadly that they were chopping one another, but just their, I guess you can say, fan base or hype base or whatever, the young people would just get up there and say things at will. Now, I knew in my heart that I had to do something, that I had to say something, because I knew that that was dangerous. I was like, you can literally say something towards a rival gang, even though you're not a gang member, and you can put yourself in danger and destruction. So I got up there and I made a video and I talked to the young people. And of course, I expressed my concern about them doing that and that how dangerous that was. Because again, these are real gangs and these gangs don't play and they're violent. And they would talk about people's grave and spitting on people's graves and F this op and F that op. And I just knew that that was crazy. So that in and of itself, outside of just gang activity, that causes what you call murder and killing, for people who are not even in gangs, the violence, it stirs the pot. So I did take it up on myself to make a video about that and to, as nicely as I could, address the young people who were doing that and to let them know that, they got to be wiser than that, better than that, because that can easily draw them into situations where it's just a bloodbath, right? Because again, like they don't care. So I did experience that part. I knew that it was happening. I just wasn't in it physically. It was just all around. And I saw the different things and the parents and the people going through and stuff like that. But again, if you're a Chicagoan and you aspire to be a leader, entrepreneur, and you have new ideas and just new ways of thinking, or maybe you just don't think the same way that most people do, it is good that you consider like the types of people that you're going to serve. You understand what I'm saying? Because when I look at these particular groups of people, you have to have a knack to want to do that. And I think that's why a lot of people haven't taken that on in Chicago, because number one, you have to have a heart. You have to be called to do it. You understand what I'm saying? Like you can't just jump up and get into stuff. You have to be called to do it. And a lot of times when you're called to do something, God does protect you. So number one, you have to have a heart to do it. You have to be called to do it. And I think that's why a lot of people haven't really jumped at it. Some people, because they think, oh, they just like that. There's nothing for them. They just like that. That's not true. That's not true. They just don't have people to step in and say, hey, let's get you something better. Let's let you see something better, a different world, a better world. And then let's give you the skills and the knowledge and the wisdom that you need so that you can go from this environment to a better environment. So that's number one. So if you're an aspiring leader or entrepreneur and that kind of tugs at you, I would really say to you, really just get inside your mind and figure out who you are designed to speak to talk to deal with, to produce change in, and in return, they can produce change in others. So that's number one. That's what I would say. And number two, if you feel called to those particular type of people that really do need help, you have to sit down and figure out how you're going to help them. Because you're not going to be out there on the streets throwing up fingers, acting like you cool with them, like it doesn't work like that. So you have to figure out how you're going to help them, what resources you're going to use, what messages you're going to use, because it can't be the same old cookie cutter leadership words. That's why it don't work. So you have to figure out what new ideas, what new messages, what can you do differently? What can you bring differently that's going to really touch and move them from point A to point B. So point A is that they're in this mindset that that's how they live, and that's just how it is. Point B is that helping to them to realize that no, it's not, and that they were handed this and this was passed to them, but it doesn't mean that it's actually them. And there has to be a master plan for that, because you're dealing with a systemic issue that's so deep and so spiritually dark that you have to have a plan. That's not just something you get up and you say a few good or spin around words and and it's just fixed. That's something that takes work and dedication. You understand what I'm saying? So I just wanted to touch on that a little bit. Now I really want to touch on the critical issues that some of you all are having in Chicago with housing, with immigration, politics, your politicians, and why a lot of blacks chose to go from blue to red. What was, as you listened to that recording earlier, like I said, how this is leading leaders and entrepreneurs to understand that there is in demand leadership, in demand entrepreneurship. And as you notice what I mean by in demand, I don't mean demanding. I don't mean demanding. I don't mean like you take over. I don't mean like it's what you say and people follow. I mean like you are hearing the voices of the people. Because what those people are showing you is that current leadership is not working. So if current leadership is not working and current entrepreneurship is not working, you guys are the ones who have to figure out what is that that's not working. What are those pain points? What are they crying about? What are they arguing about? What are their frustrations with these leaders, with these entrepreneurs, with corporate America? Once you start digging into that and sitting down and just jotting down what's actually not working, then your brain will begin to work and your inspiration will begin to work to stimulate you to see what can work. You understand what I'm saying? Because it can't just be feel good words. You're dealing, I'm sorry to say it, but your generation and those who, whether you're 40, 50, or whatever, and you're deciding to take on this role of leadership and entrepreneurship, you are dealing with issues so deep that it's going to take more than feel good words. It's going to take more than I'm the leader. I'll tell you a few good inspirational things and you just follow. Or I'm the entrepreneur. I got this great idea and you just buy. When people become entrepreneurs, they become entrepreneurs because they're trying to solve a problem. When people are called to be leaders, they're actually leaders because there is a problem that needs to be solved. There's a ditch that people are in that they need to come out of. Or it can even be there's something, a blind spot that's lacking that you may have the information to or the insight to that they need translated to them so that it will take them from point A to point B. So again, if you sit down and really look at your current leadership, and I'll give you an example. So when you look at your current mayor, so who is that? Mayor Johnson, right? Brandon Johnson. A lot of people were complaining that they voted for him. They put him in there and they expected him to do certain things, right? So number one, you're looking at people's expectations, right? Now we all know that there's a political game and the people always say you're supposed to do this and the politicians say, okay, I'm gonna do this. And then a lot of times they don't get done, right? But I think people are in demand. So this is what I mean by in-demand leadership and in-demand entrepreneurship. Because you have to understand that people are tired of playing the game. So remember, for a very long time, people wanted to play a game. They just wanted to play a game. And when that game began to tie them up and to ensnare them, they no longer wanted to play the game. When the game was not giving them what they wanted, they don't want to play the game. So what are they doing now? Again, going back to those clips and listening to those clips, they want real change. They want people that if they put you there, or if you do, by the grace of God, get into those positions, you can't do what the last leader's done. Do you understand that? You have to bring solutions. You have to bring answers. You have to bring insights. You have to bring those things that's going to take them from point A to point B. So let's give an example. If the black people voted this Mayor Johnson in, and he's a black person, and they expected him to at least not do everything for blacks, but at least wouldn't have black people's jobs being taken away. that they wouldn't have their housing taken away and all that kind of stuff. They at least expect them to do that much. When those mayors and those people begin to fail, then those people realize we put the wrong people there. We expected you was going to do something and that you didn't do it. Now, you do have to look at all of the dynamics because there's more than just a mayor at play. There's a whole system at play. You understand what I'm saying? But when a leader is showing you that he doesn't care and he has showed you that over and over and over, then that's when those people begin to stand up because they feel that they've been violated. They feel that the trust is broken. They feel that those particular people didn't care and wasn't there to fend for them. Because that's the whole purpose of you putting them up in there, right? They're supposed to be handling things on a managerial level and on a political level and policy level that make sure that you're okay as the people. Okay. So that's why I wanted to hit a little bit on that because you have to understand we're not, I know a lot of people got a lot of say stuff and feel good stuff and all of that, but that is not the era that we're headed into. We're headed into an era where the people don't care about that anymore. They don't care about what feels good. They don't care about what sounds good. What they care about is, are you really going to do it? Are you really going to deliver? Do you really have the solution? And this is what I mean by in demand leadership. That leadership that understands that what is in demand is what they must fulfill. You understand what I'm saying? And those demands are many different demands across the board. It's not just one demand. It is so in every field, in every endeavor, in every walk of life, there are demands. There are things in people's hearts that they're searching for. Some of you have the answers. Some of you are developing those answers. It may come in the form of a product. It may come in the form of a service. It may come in the form of new ideas and new inventions. But you're going to be the answer to what they've been looking for. So you need to continually prepare yourself on how to deal with these systemic issues that go on, not just within Chicago. I'm just speaking about Chicago right now, but that goes on within all 50 states within America, some more so than others, but these things happen. Systemic, social, and spiritual issues. You got to be able to deal with them. Spiritual because we're spirit. At the end of the day, yes, we have a physical body, but we're spirit, we're energy. Social because we live in this social world. And systemic because we are dealing with a systemic giant. Trust me, we are. And people need to learn how to deal with those issues and overcome those issues in the truthful, right way. People have been lied to with so much psychology. People have been deceived with so much deception. And that's where you come in at. You're going to step up. You're going to deal with the status quo and you're going to bring real change. So that's in demand driven leadership. Again, a lot of the Chicagoans, if you were listening, they stepped up because they knew that something so detrimental was happening, like losing their housing, losing their parks, losing their jobs, their livelihood basically. And so when you're dealing with people's livelihood, to some people that feels like everything because if they don't have a way to live and to have have a living and make a living, that's very impactful upon them and their families, right? And so that's definitely was one thing that shifted so many people to go from blue to red. They said they were tired of that. They were tired of their people that they voted in, like the mayor and other people that sat back and just allowed this thing to happen. And that they would talk to them and the people would act like they didn't care. They said, well, we're not going to sit there and just holler anymore and hoop anymore. We're going to do something about it. And they felt like if they voted differently or voted for another party, even if it worked or it doesn't work, the point is that they felt like they were taking action. Do you understand that? They felt like they were taking up for something. Because that's true. Most people just complain, but they don't do nothing about it. So for them, they felt like we're going to vote you out. We're not putting you back up in there anymore. And then we're going to vote other people in. We're going to take a stand. And not only did they not take the stand, they took the stand collectively so they could have impact. So again, I just wanted to kind of hit on that, right? Now, when we're looking at leadership and government policy, what's working and what's not working? As leaders, you definitely need to understand policy. I don't care if you're going to be a leader in finance, a leader in aerospace, or a leader in homeless shelters where you help lead young people, whatever you choose to be a leader in or entrepreneur in whatever problems you choose to solve. One of the things as aspiring and upcoming leaders, you must understand policy. You need to understand what states you live in, what states you operate in, and what policies affect your organization that you're going to have and your businesses, because they do affect it. And also, what effect is that going to have on the people that you're going to be leading and working with? That's very, very important. You need to understand what's working and what's not working. Because again, when you understand what's not working, then you're able to produce the things that you need to produce and the ideas and the inventions so you can go help the way that you truly need to do and make change. So that's very, very important. Now I have a question for you. So I'm gonna read this. Mayor Brandon Johnson, since he been in election, he has pursued progressive policies focusing on social equity, education, and public safety. Now, I want to ask you a question if you're Chicago. Do you really feel that way? Now, of course, there are a lot of people that don't. So, of course, that's why they wanted him out and that's why they wanted to go red. And they just felt like he doesn't. He didn't do what he said he was going to do. I want to know what you feel because maybe you have a different idea and how do you see it through your lens of leaders and entrepreneurs. Now, he made a tax proposal in his 2025 budget, proposed a significant liquor tax to increase a new 300 million property tax to address the city's financial needs. These proposals have sparked debate amongst residents and business owners regarding their potential impact on the economy. So again, pay attention, y'all, because these are the things that really, really affect the people that you serve. You're looking at two things. You're looking at three things. You're looking at leadership. You're looking at a proposal, and you looking at what the idea is behind the proposal. So the idea behind this is, again, Johnson proposed a significant liquor tax increase. Liquor tax increase. Now, how many people know that in Chicago, a lot of blacks are affected by liquor? So just think if you're dealing with systemic issues and you're dealing with black people that you're trying to help, or just people in general in underserved areas. One of the main problems they have is what? Drinking. A lot of people have drinking issues, liquor issues. And now you're talking about increasing a tax on it. Okay. Then you're talking about a 300 million property tax. So a new 300 million property tax to address the city's financial needs, not to address the people's needs, but to address the city's financial needs. Well, what is the problem with that? The problem with that is that the city itself hasn't been managing, hasn't been budgeting, hasn't been doing right by the resources. So now you need to increase a liquor tax with a property tax. Do you understand that? So do you understand the trickle down effect that is happening in leadership? I'm not picking on Chicago. I'm not picking on this mayor. I'm giving you an idea of what happens when things are mismanaged, when things are not done right, and how you have to dig deeper and deeper, like to try to fix things, right? But it's putting you deeper and deeper into what? A hole. Because really, who needs to keep giving the black community liquor? Who needs to raise a tax in the black community for liquor and for people who sell liquor? It's just a trickle down effect, right? What about this 300 million property tax to address the city's financial needs? 300 million property tax to address the city's financial needs? Do you understand that? People are already dealing with enough. They're already dealing with inflation. So this is what I mean by leadership that is currently not working. And what are you guys going to do different? How are you going to think different? And what are your plans? Like you don't have to share with people your plans. That's none of people's business. But you do need to notice for yourself because again, this is pushing people into a deeper and deeper hole. And in this case, economically, financially. In many cases, spiritually too. So you really need to be thinking about those innovative approaches that you're going to have that's going to be most effective into solving these types of issues on a political, business, social, even on a religious level. So again, I want to thank you so much for tuning in. And I just want to remind you, as On the Rise and aspiring leaders, that you have an opportunity to see things differently, to do things differently, and to make real impact. But you can't come with the same old junk that past time people have came with, that older leadership that didn't work, that didn't come with. So your best bet as On the Rise and aspiring leaders and entrepreneurs is to really sit down. This is the best education you can ever have. Sit down, study what works, what don't work. And then I promise you, within that, your heart and your mind is going to begin to speak to you. You're going to begin to come up with ideas and inspiration that's going to help you stand out and help you be an in-demand leader and entrepreneur. I'm IBK. Thank you so much for sitting in with me today. And until next week, I will see you again. And as my favorite childhood reporter would say, courage, my friends, courage.